Adam, I'm just not happy anymore. I want a divorce. Though Adam felt a jolt at her words, he wasn't entirely blindsided. After all, they'd been married close to 20 years, and lately, Sophie had been sharing her thoughts and frustrations more frequently with her friend, Zoe, the self-appointed marriage expert. Zoe's so-called expertise was based on her experience with 3 divorces of her own. Sophie, I'm listening. I understand you want a divorce, Adam responded, steadying himself. But this is not a decision I want to react to on impulse. I honestly thought I'd been a caring husband and a good father. You've never brought up any concerns about our intimacy, so I'm struggling to understand what's changed. He took a deep breath, adding, Still, if our marriage is truly affecting your happiness, then as painful as it is for me, I'll support you. But, please, I need to know, is this a recent feeling? Or have you been feeling this way for a while? Sophie nodded, as if finally letting her guard down a bit. Yes, it's been building up gradually. I just feel like I need space. Time to see what else is out there. To meet new people and have some new experiences. As far as I know, she continued, the court requires us to be legally separated for at least 90 days once we sign the papers. Maybe, in that time, I'll realize I don't want a divorce after all. Adam nodded slowly, taking it all in. So, we might not have to go through with this then? He mused, half to himself. That sounds a lot like what I've heard from others who've gone through divorce, Adam replied thoughtfully. During the 90-day separation period, we're allowed to date other people without it being seen as cheating. But for us to stop the divorce, we'd both have to agree. If either of us wanted to, though, we could move forward with the divorce alone. It dawned on Adam that Sophie might not realize he had the same freedom she did. I figured that if I filed first, it would be up to me whether we stayed married or got divorced. Sophie paused, seeming taken aback, and Adam pressed on. I don't think that's quite fair. So, to keep things equal, I'll file as well. Does that sound reasonable to you? I guess so, Sophie stammered. Are you saying you want a divorce too? Adam looked at her, feeling a pang of frustration and sadness. No, I don't want a divorce. I just thought I was doing a decent job as your husband, father to our kids, and as your partner. But I'm not going to stand in the way of your future, if that's what you need. Sophie's expression softened. Adam, I never meant to imply you weren't a wonderful husband and father. You've been amazing. I feel like I need something different. Maybe to meet new people and have new experiences. Maybe that would give me some sense of fulfillment. This separation might give me the space I need. Sophie, the fact that you feel you need more than I can offer, it just makes me question where I fell short. Adam paused, gathering his thoughts. Have you already been to a lawyer and started on the paperwork? Ignoring his comment about feeling inadequate, Sophie replied, No, not yet. I plan to hire Mason Wright. He's the same lawyer Zoe used for her divorces. Hearing this, Adam recognized Zoe's influence behind Sophie's new expectations for their marriage. Well, I'll probably ask my cousin Lily to handle my side of things, he added. I know she's not your favorite, but she's a kind-hearted person at her core. Her tough reputation just comes from how she fights for her clients, no matter who they are. Sophie scoffed at the mention of Lily, and Adam continued, Funny enough, after our last family gathering, Lily, probably after a few too many drinks, actually offered to represent me for free if I ever needed a divorce lawyer. Wow, Sophie muttered. Anyway, Adam pressed on, I think we should discuss our next steps. Why don't you take the next 2 weeks to get ready for the divorce, so we can start our separation at the beginning of the month? All right, that should work, Sophie agreed, though she looked uncertain. But I don't really see why we need to get everything ready before the separation period's up. Adam nodded. I suppose the purpose of the separation is to let us experience what life might be like once we're divorced. So, this separation should give us a chance to see if this is really what we want, Adam continued. It's like a trial run for life after divorce. Without it, we might not find any clarity until we're fully divorced, and that could be messy. Does that make sense to you? Maybe, Sophie replied, her tone a bit uncertain. I hadn't really thought about it like that. Adam could see her resolve starting to waver. How about this? Let's go to the kitchen, grab a notepad, and start listing everything we'll need to handle. I'll make us some coffee, he offered. With that, Adam got up from the bed and headed to the kitchen, leaving Sophie alone with her thoughts. By the time she joined him there, the coffee was already brewing, and Adam was busy scribbling notes. All right, he began. There's a lot we'll need to figure out. It's hard to know where to start, but I think we should begin by talking about the kids. What do you mean? Sophie asked, looking a bit concerned. Well, we'll need to explain the situation to them. We should make sure we're on the same page about how we tell them and reassure them that none of this is their fault, Adam explained. Sophie sighed, her worry evident. She voiced her concern about breaking the news to their daughters, mentioning that they might not handle it well and wondering if it was even necessary to tell them so soon. She suggested waiting out the 90 days first, or maybe even not telling them at all. Adam countered by suggesting they come up with a plan to handle the inevitable questions their daughters would have about the separation. He proposed that Sophie stay in the house during the separation period, allowing them to keep a sense of stability for the kids and spend some time together as a family now and then. But Sophie was skeptical. She pointed out the difficulties they might face trying to coordinate their social lives, not to mention the risk of resentment if one of them wasn't supportive of the other going out. She stressed the importance of fully experiencing life apart to see what post-divorce living would actually feel like. She also raised concerns about how their daughters might react if they saw their parents socializing with other people. They talked about the need to inform their daughters, as well as their extended family and friends, so there wouldn't be any misunderstandings or suspicions of infidelity. Both agreed that no matter how careful they were, the girls might still feel somehow responsible, which made it essential to stay consistent in their explanations and show them plenty of love. While they acknowledged that professional counseling might be necessary, they were hopeful that their daughter's resilience would help them adjust. Adam mentioned that, in the future, their kids might even end up with additional grandparents from any new partners they each might have, which could mean more gifts and celebrations for special occasions. However, they both realized this would require careful planning around birthdays and holidays to keep things smooth for the children. Adam also emphasized the importance of being discreet with any new romantic interests. He suggested that it would be best to meet their dates elsewhere rather than bringing them to the house when the other parent was there with the kids. They turned to the financial side of things, recognizing that keeping two separate households would increase their expenses. Adam noted that both of them would need to adjust to managing all their costs independently. He explained that, as is common in divorce, they would likely split their joint assets evenly, which meant closing joint accounts and arranging for child support. Understood, Sophie murmured, still processing everything. There's so much we have to settle before the first day of separation. Adam nodded. I'll start looking for an apartment closer to my job. I want to make sure the girls have a place to sleep when they stay with me during my visitation nights. He added, usually visitation schedules allow the non-custodial parent to see the kids every weekend and on alternating major holidays, unless the custodial parent agrees to a different plan. Sophie admitted she was a bit surprised that Adam wasn't out dating more often, especially given how much he and their daughters enjoyed spending time together with all their shared activities. Adam reassured her, saying he would stay involved in their lives as much as possible. But he added that Sophie and her future partner should be prepared to take on some of the responsibilities he currently managed. He explained that weeknight visits could be tricky because of school commitments, and even mentioned the possibility of helping a new partner's kids with homework and activities, hinting that Sophie might end up helping her future husband with his children, too. Adam pointed out some practical issues, like the challenge of managing the girls' belongings across two homes and the hassle of coordinating transportation, especially if his new place wasn't on the school's bus route, which could really disrupt the girls' routine. This isn't how Zoe said it would go, Sophie mused, visibly frustrated. She told me you'd back down the moment I mentioned divorce, that you'd keep doing everything for the family while letting me see other people on the side. She looked at him, sounding almost defeated. Adam, I feel like I'm losing control of this situation. I'm shocked. I need some rest. Let's talk more tomorrow. I'm going back to bed. You go on to bed, dear. I just need to jot down a few more things before I call it a night, Adam said. You know how my mind works. The more we prepare now, the easier things will be on day one. Good night, honey. Sophie barely slept. She knew she'd need to talk with Zoe to update her on Adam's unexpected response. Zoe would surely have advice on the next steps, and that thought finally helped Sophie drift off. When she awoke the next morning, she immediately noticed Adam wasn't beside her in bed. Unbelievable, she muttered. This fool must have stayed up all night working on that divorce checklist. But when she entered the kitchen, Adam was nowhere in sight. Only a notepad sat on the table. Curious, Sophie peeked into the guest room, where she found Adam fast asleep. She returned to the kitchen and started making breakfast. As everything cooked, her eyes fell on her notepad, where she had started listing items under the heading, Liabilities to Change. The list was extensive, covering everything from the mortgage and homeowner's insurance to utilities, gas, water, electric, cable, cell phone plan, garbage collection, internet security, car payments, car insurance, health insurance, and dental insurance. She'd even included items like Amazon Prime, LifeLock, LifeFlight, and Medevac, on top of the banking changes they discussed the night before. On the next page, beneath the banking adjustments they discussed the previous night, Adam had listed his expected expenses for living in the apartment. He'd included a detailed budget showing the child support amount he anticipated Sophie would need to maintain her and the girl's current standard of living. His estimates showed a shortfall of a few $100s each month. Adam had even outlined some cost-cutting strategies, like cutting back on his frequent visits to Waffle House and Starbucks, a thought that brought a smirk to her face. Sophie then added her own expenses to the list, including her gym membership, her women's group, and dining out more than once a week. Adam had also factored in some of the children's expenses, like fees for extracurriculars, uniforms, and other necessities, all things Sophie hadn't considered in her initial divorce plan. Turning the page, she found a list of practical tasks Adam expected her to manage independently. It included responsibilities like refueling the car, handling routine maintenance, arranging for a mechanic or plumber when issues arose, scheduling heating and air conditioning repairs, lawn care, car washing, grocery shopping, and other day-to-day tasks. Overwhelmed, Sophie set the notepad aside. Darn it! Why isn't Adam acting the way I expected and just giving me what I want? Sophie muttered to herself. I need to call Zoe before Adam wakes up. Hello, Zoe. It's Sophie, she whispered, trying to keep her voice down since Adam was still sleeping nearby. How did it go last night? Zoe's voice was filled with excitement, clearly expecting some good news. Well, instead of asking how he could change to keep me from leaving, he agreed to the divorce, Sophie explained, frustration creeping into her tone. Then he started listing all the things he handles that I'd have to take on if we go through with this. He's planning to rent an apartment and only be responsible for the girls on weekends. He insists we need to truly separate and act like we're divorced to really figure out if we want to move forward with the divorce after 90 days. It's like he's not even scared of the divorce. What should I do? She asked, feeling overwhelmed. Listen, foolish girl, Zoe replied sharply. He's just trying to manipulate you. He's bluffing. There's no way he's actually going to sign any papers. It's unfortunate that he feels the need to list all the little things he does, making you feel more dependent on him than he is on you. The bottom line is you have control over the kids and what happens in your intimate life. Those are the only two things that will keep him in line. It's all just talk on his part. Don't worry. Before long, you and Nathaniel will be enjoying each other in bed, and you'll still have your husband and home, Zoe reassured her. I hope you're right, and that Nathaniel is worth all this trouble, Sophie replied, feeling uncertain. Well, Adam hasn't made any moves yet. I'll stay firm for now, at least until I see what he does next. Thank you, Zoe. He's waking up. I have to go. Hey, Adam, would you like some coffee? Sophie asked nervously as her husband shuffled over to the coffee pot. Drinking coffee late at night isn't the best idea, he remarked. I hardly slept. Why didn't you come to bed with me? She responded. Well, I went for a walk. I just didn't trust myself, he admitted, glancing at her. What do you mean? She asked, puzzled. Sweetheart, I saw you sleeping without any clothes on, and it made me quite aroused. You're still the most beautiful woman I know, he confessed, his gaze lingering on her. I'm hesitant. I worry that if we were to make love, it would be out of pity to ease my pain over this divorce proposal. I'm not sure I could resist, she said, her voice trembling. Darling, we're still married. I belong to you and no one else, at least until we separate. Can't we just act like husband and wife until then? He pleaded. I'm afraid not. I'm more convinced than ever that we need to start the separation process immediately, even though the official split won't happen until the 1st of the month. It essentially starts on the 2nd, Adam said. You mentioned you're unhappy. This will be tough for me, but I genuinely want you to be happy, even if that means I no longer play a significant role in your life. Sophie reassured Adam that their separation didn't necessarily lead to a divorce. Just give me some time to find myself, she urged, expressing her belief that they could stay married and perhaps even strengthen their bond in the process. However, Adam was skeptical about her optimism. He announced his decision to take the day off to deal with matters related to their division. Owen will oversee the maintenance crews today, he explained, outlining the logistical arrangements regarding finances and accounts, stressing the importance of acting quickly. He also reminded Sophie not to be late for work since he would be making breakfast for the children and taking them to school. Later that day, when Nathaniel, a charming colleague, stopped by the office to flirt with Sophie, she felt a mix of anxiety and excitement. Despite her nerves, she agreed to talk about enjoying music together at a later time. Her mind drifted from thoughts of her separation from Adam to the steamy moments she had shared with Nathaniel in the elevator. Upon returning home from work, Sophie noticed signs that Adam had been there during the day. Seeing this, Sophie felt a sense of relief wash over her. She was emotionally prepared to tackle the financial issues Adam had mentioned. It seemed as if he was thinking, I have 90 days to explore, and will stay married while I figure out how to pursue a relationship with Nathaniel without getting caught. Sitting down at the kitchen table, she flipped through her notebook once again. Adam had added a few more items to the list, but what caught her attention was a new section labeled Possible Women for Today. It had 2 columns: women who have already expressed interest and women I would like to know if they are interested. Though the lists were not lengthy, the names in the first column shocked her. One of them was her sister, Vanessa. Without wasting a moment, Sophie called Vanessa. Hello, Dare, Vanessa answered. How are you? How could you try to steal my husband? Sophie snapped. Whoa, hold on a second. What are you talking about? Vanessa replied, clearly confused. Adam made a list of women who want to date him, and your name is on it. Vanessa paused before responding. I'm not sure about any list, but I did tell him, after a few too many drinks, that if he ever got smart and left your unappreciative self, I'd be interested in taking your place. Wait, what's going on here? Sophie asked, her heart racing. Are you saying he's giving you a list of women interested in him? Does this mean there's trouble in paradise? Did you catch him with someone? Or did he catch you? That's not the point, Sophie interrupted. I just told him that I needed some space, some time to myself to explore new relationships. Vanessa cut her off. Yeah, you're looking for something on the side. Who is it? Or are there multiple people? No, I haven't been involved with anyone yet, Sophie insisted. Adam and I are just going through this 90-day separation, and then we'll decide if we want to stay married or not. Right? Vanessa said, a note of skepticism in her voice. It sounds like you have someone specific in mind, but honestly, if anyone wants to be with Adam, there's nothing you can do about it. Just so you know, I plan to pursue him myself once you're legally separated. I'd be absolutely faithful to him. Sophie felt her defenses rise. I'm separating from Adam because I want to, even though I used to praise him as a husband and provider. Look, Sophie, Vanessa replied. Your actions seem foolish and naive. Do you realize what you're giving up? Adam is a great provider, a good husband, a fantastic father, and a lover. You might regret this decision. Vanessa urged Sophie to let her know as soon as she was free from her marriage, then abruptly ended the conversation. After the call, Sophie tried to calm her nerves, but her anxiety only intensified as her eyes drifted back to the lists of women. One name stood out: Clara, Adam's secretary. Clara was a petite, stunningly beautiful single mother who was nearly 20 years younger than Adam. Yet there she was, at the top of the list, indicating her interest in dating Sophie's husband. It seemed like she might be searching for a provider for herself and her child. Two other names caught Sophie's attention, one of which belonged to a married woman, indicated by the M next to her name. The rest were women who worked alongside Adam, some of whom Sophie recognized from the local area. Despite holding a degree in psychology, Adam had worked as a laborer during college and still had a strong connection to the trade, having built his business to include 3 teams. Sophie couldn't shake the suspicion that he was evaluating these women's plumbing skills, not to mention the state of their home plumbing systems. The 3 unnamed women on the list were described simply as a waitress at Waffle House, a barista at Starbucks, and a clerk at Walmart. Sophie found herself wondering how many other women found Adam as appealing as Vanessa did. She hadn't expected Adam to start dating while they were apart, but now she wondered if he already had someone in mind. As Adam entered the house, he spotted Sophie flipping through a notebook. He had a feeling he knew where the conversation was headed. "Looks like you wasted no time finding a replacement for me." "Huh? My own sister, of all people. How could you?" he confronted her. Sophie shot back, "I was just catching up on what you've been up to in finding a boyfriend." "What do you mean? I don't have a boyfriend," she clarified. "I just want to explore some new relationships." "What about Nathaniel Chase?" Adam asked, narrowing his eyes. "How do you know about that?" Sophie replied, startled. "Nathaniel Chase? What's your plan?" "Today, I ran into Sylvia, your boss's secretary, at Walmart during my lunch break. She's a notorious gossip," Adam explained. "Don't trust everything she says," he added quickly. After a brief pause, Sophie couldn't help herself. "What did she say?" "Well, according to Sylvia, you're close friends with one of our new partners, Nathaniel Chase. She claims he visits your office often, and that you two have lunch together every day," Adam said. Sophie shook her head. "I told her that Nathaniel is an old college friend, and that we often hang out together. That's why she thinks Nathaniel might be one of the men I was considering during our separation." "How far have you taken your little investigation?" Adam asked, a mixture of curiosity and accusation in his tone. "Nathaniel is just a friend," Sophie replied, attempting to keep her voice steady. "We haven't done anything serious, just talked. He's someone I could see myself dating. He's always kind and compliments me, even when I feel like a mess," she explained, trying to downplay the situation. "Anything beyond casual chatter?" Adam pressed, leaning in with a sharp look. Sophie's cheeks flushed as her mind flickered back to their flirty exchanges in the elevator. "Did you do anything that his wife wouldn't approve of?" Adam's eyes narrowed. "Wife? He's not married. Who told you that?" Sophie shot back, a surge of indignation rising within her. "I stumbled across it on his Facebook page," Adam replied, his voice laced with a mix of triumph and disbelief. "Are we talking about Nathaniel Chase?" he asked, his brow furrowing. "Yes, that's him," Sophie confirmed, anxiety creeping in. "What does his marital status say?" Adam pressed further, his tone now more accusatory. "It says he's married to Amelia and they have 2 kids," Sophie admitted, her heart sinking as reality set in. "But maybe he's divorced now," she suggested weakly, clinging to a thread of hope. "The profile was updated just 3 days ago, and look at the last post from his wife. It's clear they're still together," Adam pointed out, his voice tinged with bitterness. "He never mentioned he was married. I would never cross that line and break up a family," Sophie insisted, her voice trembling with conviction. "Seems like you're perfectly fine with tearing apart our own marriage, though." Adam shot back, his expression hardening as the tension in the room thickened. An uncomfortable silence settled between them as Sophie felt trapped, grappling for a moment to gather her thoughts. Nathaniel was a significant factor in her decision to contemplate ending her marriage, but she knew better than to let Adam suspect anything. "Well, he's just one of several guys I might think about dating," she deflected, trying to regain some control of the conversation. Suddenly, a realization hit her. Oh my gosh, I just remembered something important. If we decide to stay married after the separation, we need to exchange medical records to make sure we're both free of sexually transmitted diseases. She blurted out, hoping to shift the focus. Sophie, that's just gross, Adam replied, grimacing at her suggestion. It's a precaution. I wasn't planning on dating anyone during this separation, especially since it's only for 90 days. But if I do feel the need, I want to be safe. You would want that too, right? It's not just about you. It's about your partners and their histories, she countered, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. Adam attempted to mask his excitement about the topic, but Sophie could see through his facade. Sensing her anger, he quickly changed the subject. Okay, Dar, let me update you on what I did today to help facilitate the separation process. I have a lot on my plate, and most of it starts on the first. Sorting out bank and credit card accounts is my top priority, so you'll have easy access to your funds. Sorting out the mortgage, utilities, and similar matters should be manageable within the next week or so, Adam continued, glancing at her to gauge her reaction. Oh, and I have some positive news about our finances. Did I mention that my secretary, Clara, is also a night manager at the Royal Arms? Those apartments are really conveniently located, so I asked her about any vacancies. She told me there's a 2-bedroom unit available, but we need to act quickly. Normally, the rent is pretty steep, but she mentioned that if I took on the role of apartment maintenance specialist, I could snag a 50% discount. That means more money in your pocket for you and the kids. You haven't signed the lease yet, have you? Sophie interjected, a hint of urgency creeping into her voice. Remember, we have 90 days, and if you play your cards right, you might find yourself back here. Sophie considered making a snide comment about his secretary being a gold digger, but she quickly dismissed the thought, knowing it would only escalate the tension. No, I haven't finalized the lease agreement yet. I had to explain why I was looking for an apartment, though. Clara said they typically don't do month-to-month rentals, but for 90 days, she could probably make an exception. Adam's eyes narrowed slightly as he processed her words. So, when Clara heard about the divorce, she expressed interest in you? Sophie could see the flicker of jealousy in his gaze. I was taken aback by the age gap, to be honest. She's almost 20 years younger than you. I had no idea she found me attractive, Adam said, shaking his head. I politely declined, reminding her of the workplace rules that prohibit employees and managers from having anything beyond a professional relationship. Clara even suggested she could find another job if that was the issue. That's why I noted it on the list. Sophie felt a surge of anger rising within her, but she restrained herself, understanding that voicing her frustrations would only make things worse. Before she could respond, Adam continued, his tone shifting. There's another piece of news you might appreciate. I booked 2 tickets for a 10-day vacation in Hawaii. I wanted it to be a surprise for our 20th anniversary. Sophie's expression transformed in an instant, her mood flipping like a switch. Hawaii? Oh my God, Adam. You know how much I have always wanted to go there. This is incredible. I can't wait to relax on the beach and swim in the ocean. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. However, Adam's face remained stoic, a stark contrast to her excitement. Actually, we won't be going to Hawaii, he said, his voice steady but laced with disappointment. When you brought up the divorce, it hit me that we might not even make it to our 20th anniversary. I tried to cancel the trip and get a refund, but it was too late. They only offered a 20% refund. After thinking it over, I realized that this trip has always been more about your dream than mine. I thought you might still want to go, so I asked them to change the tickets for you and a guest to be named later, Adam said, his expression unreadable. It could be a great opportunity to kick off your new relationship, giving your new man an all-expenses-paid trip to Hawaii. Adam, that's not the point, Sophie replied, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. I wanted to go to Hawaii with you. We could put the separation on hold. In fact, I'm seriously considering calling off the whole thing. Now that I've had some time to reflect, I'm not as unhappy as I once thought. I'm sorry, Dare, Adam interrupted, his voice firm but tinged with regret. I've given this a lot of thought. I don't think I could be at peace knowing that the threat of divorce is still hanging over us. Even if you take back your request now, you can't erase what you wanted. And I can't shake the images in my mind of what you might have shared with Nathaniel while pretending everything was fine between us. Sophie felt a knot tighten in her stomach at the mention of Nathaniel. Adam, I'm likely going to proceed with the divorce regardless of your decision, he continued, his tone steady but filled with sorrow. The thought of being just a part-time father to our girls is unbearable, and I can't imagine life without you. With those words, Adam turned and retreated to the guest bedroom upstairs, leaving Sophie feeling shattered. She knew she needed to talk to someone who might understand her turmoil. She reached for her phone and dialed Zoe. Hello, Sophie. What's wrong? Zoe answered, her tone instantly concerned. Zoe, everything has gone wrong, Sophie confessed, her voice trembling. Adam found an apartment, and that skinny secretary of his is already flirting with him. Even my sister wants to date him, Sophie said, her voice laced with disbelief. The worst part? He had tickets to Hawaii for our anniversary, and he gave them to me to use. But he won't go. He said I could take my new boyfriend instead. What do I do now? She continued, frustration bubbling to the surface. Hey, what's the problem? Zoe replied, trying to lighten the mood. You and Nathaniel will have a blast in the sun, enjoying fun and amazing lovemaking. No, Zoe. I just found out Nathaniel is married. His wife and kids are moving here soon. I can't do that. I don't want to go to Hawaii with him. I want to go with Adam. Wait a minute, Zoe interjected, a spark of realization in her voice. I think I just figured out what's happening. Wow, Adam is more cunning than I gave him credit for. He claims he booked the trip ages ago, but it's all a ploy to manipulate you into feeling guilty and stopping the divorce proceedings. Sophie felt a mix of anger and clarity. I never imagined he could be so deceitful. He'll pay for this. Don't fret, Zoe continued, a reassuring tone creeping back in. With your looks and charm, you'll find boyfriends as good as, if not better than Nathaniel, all while keeping your marriage and family intact. Thank you, Zoe. I was on the verge of giving up, but now, he's going to regret this dearly. Let's chat later, Zoe said before the call ended. As Adam descended the stairs, Sophie noticed a small suitcase in his hand. So, you're trying to make it look like you're already moving out? She asked, bitterness creeping into her tone. No worries. Goodbye and good riddance. Actually, I was just planning to take a few things to the apartment, Adam replied, trying to keep his tone light. I didn't want to carry too much at once and startle the girls. Clara said I could move some items in before the first since the place is still empty. Sophie crossed her arms, skepticism etched on her face. Your demeanor seems different from earlier. Let me guess. You were consulting your marriage guru. Zoe is a divorce expert, not a guru. He shot back, irritation creeping into his voice. Don't try to provoke me by insulting her. She's on my side, you know. She figured out your little Hawaii ticket scheme. You fabricated that story just to coerce me into giving up everything. Nice try, but I still want a divorce and can't wait to finalize it. There are plenty of guys out there who want me and are willing to meet my needs. You're right about the attention you'll get from others, Adam conceded, frustration lacing his words. I have no doubt you'll attract numerous offers once people realize you're available. I've always considered myself incredibly fortunate to have such a stunning woman like you, an amazing partner in raising our children, and until recently, a devoted wife and lover. Sophie's heart raced as Adam's words hung in the air, tinged with both admiration and resentment. You're mistaken about the Hawaii trip, he continued, determination flashing in his eyes. And I can prove it. Just call Martha Adams at Flightright Travel Agency. I'll dial her now. He pulled out his phone and began to dial. Hi, Martha. It's Adam Foster again. My wife is on speakerphone, so you can fill her in on the details about the trip, Adam said, his voice steady but his eyes betraying a flicker of anxiety. She has a few questions, as expected. Adam, I'm really sorry you won't be able to go. It seems like you were genuinely looking forward to surprising your wife and enjoying this vacation, Martha said sympathetically. Sophie seized the moment. What specifics do you need, Mrs. Simpson? She demanded, her tone sharp. Certainly. This is a 10-day excursion spanning 2 islands. It includes accommodations at our top-rated hotels, meals, transportation, hula lessons, luau dinners, traditional tiki performances, and opportunities for surfing, swimming, and dancing, all set in a romantic atmosphere. Many couples have found it to be a transformative experience for their marriage. Sophie felt a knot tighten in her stomach. When did your husband initially arrange this trip? Let's check, Martha replied. According to our records, he inquired about it approximately 3 months ago, finalized his selection for this specific trip 2 months ago, and payment was made 2 weeks thereafter. Just yesterday, he contacted us to cancel the booking, which resulted in a 20% refund. I was surprised when he suggested that you could still go and find another companion. Sophie's heart raced as she processed the information. Each detail felt like a revelation, piercing through the facade she had tried to maintain. This trip, meant to celebrate their anniversary, had morphed into a battleground for their marriage, and she felt cornered. Is that right, Adam? Sophie asked, her voice low and cold, barely concealing her hurt. You were planning this all along, weren't you? That says a lot about the kind of husband he is. Sophie shot back, her voice dripping with sarcasm. You're quite fortunate. Any other inquiries? Adam asked, his tone deliberately neutral, though she could hear the underlying irritation. We'll need the other person's name for booking the flight tickets, Sophie replied, maintaining her composure. But inside, she was a whirlwind of thoughts, already anticipating how Zoe would interpret this new twist. After a moment, realization hit her like a freight train. You think you've outsmarted me again, don't you? You and Martha conspired to concoct this Hawaii trip story before I even brought up divorce. Well, I've caught on. She felt a surge of pride in her deduction, a small victory she had achieved without needing Zoe's insight. Adam sighed heavily, the sound filled with resignation. You should talk to your parents. What do my parents have to do with this? Sophie asked, confused. Who do you think will look after the girls while we're away? Adam replied matter-of-factly. Fine, let's call them, she said, caught off guard by the sudden turn of events. No need to rush into it, dare? Adam cautioned, but the hint of tension in his voice was unmistakable. I'm already dialing, he stated, his finger poised over the phone screen. Adam, Sophie started, but it was too late. Her mother answered the call almost immediately, her voice warm and familiar. Sophie, how are the girls? I'm so glad you called. Hi, Mom, Sophie greeted hesitantly, a wave of unease washing over her. Mom, this is Adam. We're on speakerphone. Hi, Mom, Adam added smoothly, as if nothing was amiss. Hold on, let me get Dad too, Sophie said, sensing her father's presence in the background. Victor, it's Adam and Sophie, her mother called, and Sophie felt her stomach twist as she prepared for the awkward family conversation that lay ahead. Pick up, honey. What's going on, guys? Victor's voice boomed through the speaker, drawing Sophie's attention. When she remained silent, Adam jumped in to break the ice. Sophie knows now, so there's no need to keep it a secret. Son, we're sorry you can't go, Victor said, concern evident in his tone. You didn't mention why when you called earlier. I hope it's not health-related. When you called this morning and said we wouldn't babysit the girls for your Hawaii trip, we were disappointed, Sophie's mother chimed in. We were really looking forward to having them with us for 10 days. And we felt bad for Sophie since she couldn't go with you. We know how much she wants to go, but she'd rather go with you than anyone else. Have you decided who to take, Sophie? It'll be tough for whoever stays, her father added, a hint of sympathy in his voice. No, Mom, I haven't decided yet, Sophie replied, her mind racing. How long ago did Adam discuss the Hawaii trip with you? I'm not sure. Victor, do you remember? Her mother asked, trying to piece together the timeline. It was around New Year's, wasn't it? He responded thoughtfully. I'm almost sure. 2 or 3 months ago. He mentioned it early so we could stock up on snacks. These two can eat anything and never gain weight. She chuckled, attempting to lighten the mood. Adam. Sophie's mother interjected, her voice turning serious. Is everything okay with Sophie? Why are you asking? When Adam talked to us, did something happen between you two? She pressed, her concern deepening. Oh God, did you break up? Sophie's mother asked, panic creeping into her tone. No, Mom, not exactly, Sophie replied, her heart racing as she navigated the emotional minefield. I'll talk to you later when everything calms down, Adam said, trying to maintain his composure despite the turmoil around him. Seeing Sophie's tears, he felt a pang of guilt. You need to pull yourself together. The girls will be home soon. With that, he grabbed his suitcase and headed toward the door. Where are you going? Sophie's voice quivered, desperation evident in her eyes. Didn't you hear? I don't want a divorce. You don't have to go anywhere, she pleaded. You unilaterally stated that you wanted a divorce without even talking to me first, Adam replied, his frustration bubbling to the surface. Now you think you can just declare that we won't get divorced because things aren't going the way you planned? You don't seem to understand that I have a voice in this too. After everything I've learned about you over the past week, I'm not sure giving up on the divorce is a good idea. He turned toward the garage, intending to grab a sleeping bag. I'll stay in the apartment for the night. Adam, please don't go, Sophie implored, her voice breaking. I'm sorry. You said it was fine before I brought up this nonsense about wanting a divorce. Can't we just move past it and return to how things were? You claimed you were happy, he shot back, his voice rising. I was very happy too, but I can't forget how you admitted to being unhappy and planned to have an affair with Nathaniel. Like I said, you've already committed infidelity, Adam continued, anger and pain mingling in his tone. Lily mentioned she could easily draft the divorce papers since they're standard terms. I'll talk to you later when everything calms down, Adam said, striving to keep his composure despite the chaos swirling around them. As he caught sight of Sophie's tears, a wave of guilt washed over him. You need to pull yourself together. The girls will be home soon. With that, he grabbed his suitcase, determination set in his jaw, and headed toward the door. Where are you going? Sophie's voice wavered, desperation etched across her face. Didn't you hear? I don't want a divorce. You don't have to go anywhere, she pleaded, her eyes pleading for understanding. You stated you wanted a divorce without even talking to me about it first. Adam shot back, frustration bubbling just beneath the surface. Now you think you can just decide that we won't get divorced because things aren't unfolding the way you envisioned? You need to realize that I have a say in this too. After everything I've discovered about you over this past week, I'm not sure backing out of the divorce is wise. He turned towards the garage, intent on retrieving a sleeping bag. I'll stay at the apartment tonight. Adam, please don't go, Sophie begged, her voice cracking with emotion. I'm sorry. You said it was fine before I even mentioned the divorce. Can't we just put this behind us and go back to how things used to be? You claimed you were happy, he retorted, his voice escalating. I was happy too, but I can't just forget that you confessed to being miserable and contemplated an affair with Nathaniel. Like I said, you've already crossed a line, Adam continued, the mix of anger and heartbreak evident in his tone. Lily offered to draft the divorce papers, their standard, simple terms. She might even serve them tomorrow, Adam said, his voice steady but edged with a hint of urgency. I won't sign them, Sophie shot back, her tone sharp and defiant. That's irrelevant, he replied, frustration creeping into his voice. All Lily needs to do is ensure you are officially served. She could do it at your workplace with plenty of witnesses around. Imagine if Nathaniel tried to claim alienation of affection. I could even serve your boss for violating company policy, but that would be crossing a line. I need you to be able to care for the girls after the divorce. Sophie's mind raced. I know what I'll do. I'll talk to Nathaniel's wife. That should suffice for some payback. Why are you being so harsh? Adam's eyes softened slightly. I love you, and you love me. Is there anything I can do to make things right? You said that a divorce would be tough on both of us. Don't you want to avoid this pain? I promise I won't bring up this divorce mess again. Please stay and let's work it out. Sophie pleaded, tears spilling down her cheeks. Adam remained silent and motionless, an immovable wall in the midst of her storm. Sophie felt a flicker of hope, believing she had made an impact. I promise to be the best wife in the world. I won't look at another man. I've given you nearly 20 years of a strong marriage, 2 wonderful children, and I've always supported your business, even when it meant you came home late and dirty. I'm so proud of your success. Everyone makes mistakes. Please, just give me one more chance. Her voice trembled as she implored him, vulnerability laid bare. Finally, Adam broke the silence. I'll tell you what, I'm going to take my suitcase and sleeping bag to the apartment, but I need you to write down a few things. Your words and actions have caused me more pain than you realize. If your responses meet my expectations, I will contemplate calling off or at least delaying the divorce. I'll be back by 7. You might want to send the kids to their grandparents or friends so we can speak freely. Yes, thank you. What should I write? Sophie's voice trembled with hope and apprehension. First, I expect a sincere apology for instigating this entire situation, and I want you to plead with me. Not just plead, but beg for my forgiveness. Second, I want you to instruct Nathaniel to cease contacting you. And if he doesn't? Sophie asked, her eyes wide. Warn him that I'm prepared to take legal action against him and your company if he doesn't comply, Adam stated, his tone firm. Third, I need you to enumerate all the reasons why I should consider remaining married to you. Lastly, I want you to call Zoe and tell her that you never wish to communicate with her again. This is non-negotiable. If I ever hear about Zoe's input again, I will leave immediately. Do you comprehend what I'm requesting if you want us to have a chance at salvaging our marriage? He pressed, his gaze piercing through her defenses. Yes, dear, I believe so, Sophie replied, her heart pounding. I'll fulfill everything and be ready by 7. Very well, I'll see you at 7, Adam said, grabbing his suitcase and leaving the house. Once he was gone, Sophie focused intently on the final task at hand. She mentally rehearsed her words to Zoe, preparing herself for the confrontation. Listening to you was my worst mistake. Because of you, I nearly lost everything dear to me. Do not contact me via call, text, email, or even think of me. If our paths cross in public, steer clear, or I won't be responsible for my actions. Surprisingly, she felt a sense of relief wash over her after confronting Zoe. It was as if a weight had been lifted. With renewed determination, she dialed Nathaniel's number and relayed Adam's instructions. She recounted how Nathaniel had desperately pleaded to meet one last time at the motel, resorting to insults and accusations about her inadequacies. Enough, she snapped, shutting him down. If you continue to cause trouble, I won't hesitate to involve your wife. As she began to list the reasons why Adam should stay married to her, Sophie realized it was easier than she anticipated. Liberated from the longing for something more than what she had with Adam, she reflected on the joys they had shared over the years. Ideas flowed freely as she compiled an extensive list, hopeful that it would impress him. With each reason she wrote down, she felt a wave of remorse wash over her for the deceitful plans she had concocted. How foolish, self-centered, and presumptuous I was, she acknowledged aloud. Never again. As 7 o'clock approached, Sophie felt a mix of preparedness and confidence wash over her. She had put her heart into her responses, believing that her efforts might sway Adam. However, when the hour struck and he still hadn't returned, a flicker of worry began to gnaw at her. 5 minutes later, he walked through the door without his luggage, his expression as unchanged as it had been when he left. Sophie took a deep breath, trying to remain compassionate and humble as she handed him her carefully crafted list. Here are my answers. I hope you reconsider, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Adam stared at the list for what felt like an eternity, his gaze fixed on the words. Tears welled in his eyes, and the sight of his vulnerability struck Sophie profoundly. As her own tears began to flow, she interpreted his emotional display as a glimmer of hope. "Dar, this is really impressive," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. Though hopeful, Sophie's heart fluttered as she instinctively rose to embrace him. But he gently gestured for her to stay seated. "Your effort is commendable," he said, his tone now somber. "But I'm not sure you grasp the extent of the pain you've caused me. I fear I must proceed with the divorce." Sophie's heart sank as devastation washed over her. It felt as if it had shattered into a million pieces. She collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably, her grief pulling her into depths she had never known. "I've ruined my family's life," she wailed, her words heavy with despair. "I'm the worst person alive. I don't deserve to live. How could I have been so foolish?" Adam knelt before Sophie, his voice barely above a whisper. "Now you understand how I felt." As she continued to cry on the floor, the weight of her anguish palpable in the air, he turned toward the door. But just before stepping outside, he paused and glanced back at her. "During our separation, are we allowed to see other people?" he asked tentatively. Overwhelmed with emotion, Sophie struggled to compose herself, her tears choking her words. If dating others is allowed," she stammered, trying to gather her thoughts. "What are your plans for Friday night?" Adam took a breath, his expression shifting to one of hope. "Would you like to have dinner and catch a movie?" he proposed. "You're asking me out on a date?" Sophie exclaimed, disbelief washing over her. "Yes," he affirmed, a small smile breaking through the heaviness. "I believe we've irreversibly changed our old relationship, but maybe we can start anew." A surge of renewed hope flooded Sophie's heart. Without thinking, she rushed toward Adam, her voice filled with excitement. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." "Great," he replied, a glimmer of joy in his eyes. "I'll see you then."